after her arrogant hotel heir fiancé publicly throws her, pregnant and barefoot, into a Seoul snowstorm, a gentle black maid is rescued by the city's most feared Korean mafia boss, the same wounded man she once secretly saved, who now wages a war of power, pride, and blood to give her back the dignity stolen from her. Those were the last words Amara Okafor heard before the doors of the Choi family mansion slammed shut behind her. Barefoot, bleeding, 3 months pregnant, in the middle of the worst snowstorm Seoul had seen in 9 years. She hit the marble steps so hard her engagement ring slid off her finger, and as she crawled in the snow trying to find it, the guests inside, Seoul's wealthiest socialites, laughed. They lifted their champagne glasses. They took photos. One of them streamed it live. 3 minutes later, her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was the obstetrician, Dr. Han. The voice was sharp, official, panicked. "Miss Okafor, your blood pressure readings from this afternoon flagged in our system. You need to be in a hospital right now. If you stay outside in the cold for more than 30 minutes, we will lose the baby. Possibly both of you. Do you hear me?" She heard him, but she couldn't move. Now do the math with me. 3 years. 3 years she scrubbed the floors of a family that called her the help. 11 months engaged to their golden son. 92 days pregnant with his child. And in less than 9 minutes, all of it was erased by one socialite mistress, one staged photograph, and one cowardly fiancé who chose his reputation over his unborn baby. If you love stories where the cold-hearted finally meet someone colder, and where mercy comes wearing a black coat at the worst possible second, subscribe to A Korean Mafia Boss right now, because you do not want to miss what stops on that road in the next 60 seconds. Because just as Amara closed her eyes and whispered goodbye to her child, headlights cut through the storm. A black armored car, bulletproof glass, license plate covered in snow, and out of it stepped a man Seoul whispered about, but never named. A man who had killed empires with one phone call, and never once been seen wearing kindness on his face. He looked at her. He saw the ring mark on her frozen finger. And then his expression changed, because he recognized her. How did Seoul's deadliest mafia king know a maid bleeding in the snow? And why did the sight of her ruined engagement ring make the most feared man in Korea do something nobody had ever seen him do? Stay with me. Because what happens in the next 40 minutes will rewrite everything you thought you knew about love, loyalty, and the price of throwing the wrong woman away. The Choi mansion glittered like a jewel box that night. Crystal chandeliers, imported orchids flown in from Jeju, 200 guests in custom hanboks and Parisian gowns, all gathered for the engagement banquet of Choi Min-jun, heir to the Choi Hotel Group, and the woman nobody expected him to choose. Amara Okafor, the family's quiet black housemaid. Amara stood at the top of the staircase, fingers trembling against the silk of a borrowed gown. 3 years ago she had come to Seoul on a scholarship that fell through. 3 years ago this same family had hired her, fed her cold rice in the servants' quarters, and called her the foreign girl instead of her name. But Min-jun had been different, or so she believed. He had brought her tea when her mother died. He had taught her Korean phrases late at night in the kitchen. He had knelt in this very ballroom 4 months ago and told her, "I don't care what my family says. You are mine, Amara." Now he stood at the bottom of the stairs in a tailored black tuxedo, smiling for the cameras. And Amara, one hand resting protectively over her stomach where their unknown child slept, smiled back. "You look beautiful," he whispered as she descended. "Min-jun," she said softly, "I have to tell you something tonight. About the baby. About a doctor's visit." "Later," he cut in. His eyes flicked toward the main doors. "We'll talk later." But that later would never come. She entered through the double doors like she owned them. Yoon Hye-rin, 26 years old, heir to a cosmetics empire. The socialite Min-jun had dated for 2 years before Amara, and the one his mother had wanted him to marry from the start. Hye-rin smiled at the cameras. She walked straight up to the engagement platform, and then, in front of 200 witnesses, she lifted a small white envelope. "Forgive me, everyone," Hayron said, her Korean crisp and sweet as poisoned candy. "I came to congratulate the happy couple, but as a friend of this family, there's something I cannot let you marry without knowing." The room went still. She turned to Minjun. "Darling, did you know your fiancé visited the Gangnam Women's Clinic last week?" She slid the envelope into his hand. 3 months pregnant. "Did she tell you, or did she plan to tell you after the contract was signed?" A gasp rippled through the crowd. Minjun's face went white. He turned to Amara. "Is this true?" "Minjun, I was going to tell you tonight." "You were going to tell me?" His voice cracked across the room. "After the engagement? After the press release? After my father transferred 50 million won into your account?" "What money? Minjun, I never—" But Hayrin was already pulling out her phone. "I have the bank receipt right here. She accepted it last Tuesday." It was a lie. A perfect, professional, fabricated lie. And Amara, who had never once asked Minjun for anything more than honesty, watched her fiancé's eyes harden into something she had never seen before. His mother stepped forward. "Minjun, the press is here. Choose." He chose. And the choice he made would haunt him until the day a man in a black coat came looking for him. He grabbed her by the arm so hard the silk of her gown tore at the shoulder. "Minjun, please, don't speak to me. Don't ever speak to me again." He dragged her, barefoot, the heels of her shoes left behind on the staircase, across the marble foyer. The guards opened the doors. A wall of snow and wind hit her face like a slap. "You wanted my money?" he hissed at the threshold. "Then freeze in it." He shoved her. She fell down 7 steps. Her knees split open on the stone. The ring on her finger flew somewhere into the white. And inside the warm mansion, someone laughed, a high, champagne-soaked laugh, and someone else lifted a phone and started recording. The doors closed. Amara crawled. The cold was not cold anymore. It was knives. It was teeth. Her stomach cramped, and she folded around it, whispering, "Please, baby, please stay. Please don't leave me here." Her phone vibrated. "Dr. Han." The warning. 30 minutes. "Possibly both of you." She tried to stand. She fell. She tried again. The mansion gates were 200 meters away, and the road beyond them was empty. She made it past the gates. She made it to the curb. And then her body simply stopped. She lay on her side in the snow, one arm curled around her belly, the other reaching toward nothing. And she closed her eyes. That should have been the end of her story. It wasn't even the beginning. The headlights came first, then the silence of a heavy engine cutting against the storm. Tires crunching, a door opening, but no rushed footsteps. Just slow, deliberate ones, like a man who had never in his life hurried for anyone. Amara felt a shadow fall across her face. She forced her eyes open. He was tall, black suit, black shirt, no tie, hair black as the road behind him, with one streak of silver near the temple, the kind of silver that comes from stress, not age. A scar ran from the corner of his left eyebrow down to his cheekbone, faded but visible. His eyes were the color of cold tea and held absolutely nothing she could read. He did not ask if she was okay. He did not call for help. He simply looked down at her, at the torn silk, the bare bleeding feet, the hand curled over her stomach. And then his gaze landed on the pale band of skin where an engagement ring had been wrenched off. Something in his face shifted, just for a fraction of a second. Then, without speaking, he removed his coat. Long, black, heavy, the kind of wool that costs more than most people's rent. And he wrapped it around her body with the gentleness of a man who had clearly never wrapped a coat around anyone in his life and was teaching himself the motion in real time. "Can you stand?" he finally said. His voice was low, quiet, Korean with a faint roughness, like a blade kept in velvet. "My baby," she whispered. His eyes flickered down to her stomach, then back to her face. And in that moment something clicked behind his eyes, a recognition. A shock he masked instantly. "Then you don't stand," he said. "I carry you." And he did. Behind him, 2 men in black suits had stepped out of the second car, hands inside their jackets, scanning the road. Nobody spoke. Nobody asked who she was. Whatever this man wanted, his men obeyed without language. As he lifted her, her cheek pressed against his chest, and she heard, through the heavy wool, a steady, slow heartbeat. The kind of heartbeat a man only has if he has long ago stopped being afraid of dying. And just like that, Amara Okafor, the maid soul threw away, became the one secret the city's deadliest king refused to share. She woke up in a bed too soft to be real. White sheets, heated floors, the faint smell of cedar and something medicinal, an IV drip in her arm, a monitor beeping near her stomach, and on its small green screen, a tiny, perfect heartbeat. Her baby was alive. Amara pressed her hand to her mouth and cried so hard the doctor sitting beside her had to steady the IV line. "Easy, Miss Okafor. You're safe. Your child is safe. You were severely hypothermic, but we got you here in time." "Where is here?" "The Kang residence, Pyeongchang-dong. Mr. Kang's private medical wing." Kang. The name landed somewhere deep in her chest. She had heard it whispered in the Choi household kitchens. Kang Seo-jin. Don't say the name. Don't even look at his buildings. The man who owns the night. The bedroom door opened. He walked in carrying a tray, actually carrying it himself, not handed by a servant, with a bowl of rice porridge, water, and a folded sheet of paper. He set it on the nightstand. He did not sit. He stood at a careful distance, hands clasped behind his back, like a soldier reporting to a commander. "You will stay here until the doctor clears you," he said. "That is condition 1. "Condition? There are 4. I prefer to be clear." Amara sat up slowly. Her voice, hoarse from screaming in the snow only hours ago, found something strong in it now. "I don't know you, Mr. Kang. I appreciate what you did. But I am not a woman who agrees to conditions from strangers." A flicker, almost a smile, touched the corner of his mouth. "Good. Then we will negotiate." Here were her terms, and she stated them with a firmness that surprised even her. Rule 1. He would not enter this room unannounced. Ever. Rule 2. No one was to know she was here. Not the press, not his men, not even his lawyer. Until she decided what to do, she was a ghost. Rule 3. Her doctor, Dr. Han, the one who had called her in the snow, would be brought in to confirm everything. She did not blindly trust the staff of a man whose name made grown businessmen sweat. Rule 4. He would tell her, honestly, why he had stopped his car for her. Because men like him did not pull over for strangers. And she had seen the look on his face when he'd seen her ring finger. He listened to every word without interrupting. When she finished, he gave one short nod. Agreed. All 4. Even the 4th? He walked to the window, looked out at the snow falling on a garden that probably cost more than 3 Seoul apartments, and for the first time, his voice came out softer. 8 months ago, I took 2 bullets in an alley behind a clinic in Yongsan. The men who were supposed to protect me were dead. The men who were supposed to kill me were waiting for me to bleed out. A woman came out of the back kitchen of that clinic. A foreign woman in a maid's uniform, on her way home from a second job. She didn't know who I was. She tied her own scarf around my shoulder. She called the ambulance from her own phone. And when I asked her name, she said only, Amara. Now please don't die before they arrive. He turned to face her. I never found you again. I had my men search every hospital, every clinic, every staffing agency in Seoul. You had given a fake last name. I assumed you were running from someone. So I stopped looking, out of respect. His eyes, those unreadable cold tea eyes, held hers. Tonight my driver took the long road home because of the storm, and I saw a woman in the snow with a ring mark on her finger and a hand on her stomach. and I recognized your face before I recognized the situation." Amara could not breathe. "You saved my life, Miss Okafor," he said quietly. "Tonight I am only returning the loan." And right there, in a room she had been carried into hours before, the rules of the game changed forever. "Now let me ask you, yes, you, watching this right now, be honest with me in the comments. If you were Amara, pregnant, betrayed, with no money, no family in Seoul, and the only man offering you safety was the most dangerous man in Korea, would you have said yes to staying? Or would you have walked out into that snow again, alone, and trusted no one? Drop a stay or a go in the comments. I want to know who you are, because what Amara chose next is going to surprise you. Choi Min-jun woke up the next morning with a champagne hangover and 17 missed calls from his publicist. The video had gone viral, not the version his mother had hoped for, the one where the brave heir threw out the gold digger maid. The other one. The one filmed by a junior waiter who quit the next day. The one showing Amara crawling, bleeding in the snow, while guests laughed. The internet had decided who the villain was. Hashtag Justice for Amara was trending in 3 countries. The Choi Hotel Group's stock dropped 8% before noon. Min-jun threw his phone across the room. "Find her!" he barked at his assistant. "Bring her back. We can fix this. Press release, charity donation, public apology, whatever. She'll come back. She has nowhere else to go." His assistant, pale, sweating, held up a tablet. "Sir, there's a problem. 3 private hospitals refused to confirm or deny her admission. Her phone is off. The taxi companies have no record of pickup at your address. The CCTV of your front gate from last night has been wiped, remotely." "Wiped by who?" The assistant swallowed. "Sir, wiping CCTV remotely on a residential server in Seoul. There are maybe 3 people in this city who can do that, and only one of them would do it without being paid." Min-jun went still. Kang. And that was the moment Choi Min-jun realized he had not just thrown a woman into the snow. He had thrown her directly into the arms of the only man on earth who could end his entire family before lunch. 2 weeks passed in the Kang residence. Amara healed. Slowly. Quietly. She refused to let Seo-jin pay her bills, and instead asked the housekeeper, a kind older woman named Mrs. Bay, to bring her old bookkeeping ledgers from the storage wing. "If I'm going to stay until the baby is safe to travel," Amara said, "I will earn my room. I am nobody's charity case." Mrs. Bay brought her the books. Amara, who had double majored in accounting before her scholarship collapsed, found 3 discrepancies in the household accounts in the first afternoon. She left them on Seo-jin's desk with a polite note. That night, he came to her door, knocked, waited. "Come in." He stepped inside, holding the note. "You audited my house. You said I could earn my stay. My accountants missed these for 2 years. Then your accountants are stealing from you." A long silence. Then, for the first time, he laughed. Just once, short and surprised, like a man who had forgotten the muscle existed. "Phase 2, he said. "You can move freely on the ground floor. You will eat with me when you wish. You will not be supervised. The garden is yours. The library is yours. And in exchange? In exchange, you tell me when you are ready what you want to do about the man who threw you in the snow." Amara folded her hands over the soft swell of her stomach. "I am not ready." "I know." He left. She did not see him for 3 days, but every morning a small steel thermos of warm pear tea appeared outside her door. The tea Korean grandmothers gave to pregnant women for cough and luck. It was never delivered with a note. It was never mentioned. She drank every one. Because in a life where every man had used her, the one man Seoul feared was learning, in silence, how to take care of her without making her ask. On the 40th day after the storm, Seo-jin invited her to a private lunch. Not just dinner. A jisa, a Korean ancestral memorial meal. He had explained briefly the night before. My grandmother, today is the anniversary. I do this alone every year. But this year, I would like you to be there. Only if you are willing. Amara had grown up Igbo Catholic in Lagos, with a mother who poured palm wine for her own ancestors every December. She understood instantly what he was asking. I am bringing you into the only sacred room I have. She wore a simple white hanbok Mrs. Bay helped her into. He wore black. The ritual was small. 3 bowls, a photograph of an old woman with kind, sharp eyes. He bowed twice. He poured the rice wine. And then, kneeling on the cold floor, he spoke quietly to the photograph in Korean, too soft for Amara to fully translate. When he was done, he turned to her. My grandmother raised me after my parents died. She was the last person on earth who touched my face without wanting something from me. She told me before she died, Seojin Ah, the day you find a woman who saves you without asking your name, marry her, because that is the only kind of love that does not become a debt. He looked at the floor. I thought it was a story to comfort a grieving boy. Amara, kneeling beside him in white silk, pressed a hand against the floor to steady herself. And now? And now, he said, eyes still on the floorboards. I am 34 years old. I have killed men's careers with a phone call. I have buried friends. And I have never once known what to do with the fact that you tied your scarf around me without asking my name. He looked up. I am not asking you for anything, Amara. I am only telling you the truth, because I owe you that, at minimum. And in a dining room that smelled of incense and pear tea, the most feared man in Seoul gave the most unguarded sentence of his life to a woman the world had thrown into the snow. But that wasn't the real problem. Because while Seo Jin was kneeling in front of his grandmother's photograph, Yoon Hai-rin, the socialite who had detonated the engagement, was sitting in a private suite at the Choi Hotel, sliding a USB drive across a table to Choi Min-jun. There are photos, Hai-rin said, of her, inside Kang Seo-jin's residence, from a drone, 2 days ago. That's impossible. His airspace is guarded. I paid more than he pays his guards, she smiled. The question is, what do you want to do with these? Min-jun stared at the photographs. Amara, in a soft cream coat, walking in a private garden, her hand on her stomach, his baby's stomach, and a tall man behind her, half in shadow, watching her like she was the only warm thing in his world. Min-jun's jaw locked. I want, he said slowly, to remind Kang that the baby in her body is a Choi, and that under Korean law, the father has rights. Hai-rin tilted her head. You're going to file for paternal custody. I am going to file for paternal custody, and I am going to leak it to the press as a kidnapping. The optics will destroy him. And just like that, the war began. Not with bullets, with paperwork, which, in Seoul, is far more dangerous. The custody filing hit Seo Jin's desk at 7:42 a.m. By 8:15, his lawyers had read it. By 8:30, he was standing in Amara's doorway with the document in his hand and an expression she had never seen on him before. Not anger. Restraint. The kind a man wears when he has the resources to destroy a city block and is choosing not to. He told her everything. Calmly. Completely. He laid the document on her bed. He sat in the chair by the window. Not on the bed. Never the bed. And he said, Choi Min-jun has filed a petition claiming you are being held against your will, and that the unborn child must be protected by his family. He has tipped off 3 news outlets. The story breaks at noon. I have until then to respond. Amara read it twice. Her hand shook only once. What are my options? 3. He counted them on his fingers, the way she imagined he counted threats every day of his life. 1. I have my legal team bury this in court for 2 years. You stay quiet. You give birth here in safety. You'll win, but the public will believe his version forever. 2. I make the petition disappear. I have leverage on his father's offshore accounts. 1 phone call and the Choi Hotel Group is under tax investigation by tomorrow. The petition gets withdrawn within 48 hours. Amara studied him. And 3? He hesitated. The first time she had ever seen him hesitate. 3, you face him. Publicly. On your terms. With me beside you, but the word's your own. You walk into a press conference. You tell the truth about that night. You show the medical records, and you let Seoul see the woman they laughed at. It is the most dangerous option. It is also the only one that gives you back what he stole. Which one would you choose? 2, because it protects you fastest. Which one would your grandmother choose? He looked at the floor for a long moment, then up. 3. Amara folded the petition closed. Then we do 3. He nodded once. He stood to leave. At the door, his hand on the frame, he stopped. Amara. Yes? You don't have to walk in there alone, but if you want to, I will respect that too. I know, she said softly. That's why I'll let you walk beside me. And in that single sentence, earned over 40 days of pear tea in silence, Seoul's deadliest king received the 3rd level of trust no money could buy. She walked in wearing a simple black dress. No jewelry. No makeup hiding the still fading bruise on her temple. Hand resting on her stomach. Seo Jin 1 step behind her. Exactly 1 step. Like a shadow that had chosen its body. 47 cameras. 300 reporters. Live national feed. She did not read from a script. My name is Amara Okafor. I am Nigerian. I am 30 months into a master's degree. I had to pause when my scholarship was canceled. I worked as a housemaid for the Choi family for 3 years. I was engaged to Choi Min-jun for 11 months. I am 4 months pregnant with his child. A pause. On the night of November 9th, at our engagement banquet, I was publicly accused, falsely, of accepting 50 million won to trap him into marriage. I did not. I have my bank statements here. They are public now. She held up a folder. A staffer distributed copies. I was then physically thrown out of the Choi residence, barefoot, into a snowstorm. My obstetrician's recorded call warning me of pregnancy danger is also in the folder. The CCTV I was told had been wiped was, in fact, backed up to a private cloud, and is also in the folder. Silence in the room. I am not here to ask for money. I am not here to ask for revenge. I am here because the Choi family has now filed a custody petition claiming I am being held against my will. I am not. I am being treated by Mr. Kang Seo-jin with more dignity in 40 days than the Choi family showed me in 3 years. She lowered the folder. To Choi Min-jun, if you want a relationship with this child, you will earn it the way every father earns it. In court, in writing, in time. Not through the press, not through your mistress, and never, ever again through violence. She turned. Seo-jin opened the door for her. They walked out. Behind them, a reporter shouted, Mr. Kang, are you romantically involved with Miss Okafor? Seo-jin paused. He turned. He spoke into the microphones for the first time in his entire public life. I am the man who picked her up. Whatever happens after that is hers to decide. Not mine. Not yours. And he walked out. Twitter broke. Naver broke. The narrative, the one Hiron had built so carefully, collapsed in 9 minutes. But Min-jun did not surrender. Cornered men become cleverer, or crueler. Min-jun chose both. 3 days after the press conference, Amara's older sister, Chiamaka, landed at Incheon Airport from Lagos. A surprise visit. Coordinated suspiciously with a Choi family lawyer who happened to meet her at arrivals. By dinner time, Chiamaka, exhausted, jet-lagged, fed lies in her own language by a translator the Chois had paid, was standing in the lobby of a 5-star hotel demanding to see her sister. The Choi leaked the airport footage. Family of pregnant maid arrives in Seoul, denied access by mafia boss. The narrative began to swing again. Seo-jin watched the news in Amara's sitting room, his face perfectly still. Your sister is being weaponized, he said. He'll use her to claim you're being isolated. If we keep her out, we lose. If we let her in unprepared, she may believe him. Amara was already reaching for her phone. Then I bring her in. Tonight. Myself, no bodyguards, no cameras. Amara, Seojin. She used his name for the first time without the mister. If I cannot face my own sister without you behind me, then nothing you and I have built means anything. Wait here. Trust me. He looked at her for a long time. Then, for the first time, he reached out and took her hand. Briefly, just her fingers in his palm. Then he let go. Phase 4, he said quietly. All access, no conditions. Go. And the man who had built his entire empire on never trusting another human being handed his only soft place to a woman walking out the door alone. The hotel suite was cold and overlit. Chiamaka, older, sharper, dressed in the no-nonsense suit she wore as a Lagos public defender, stood up the moment Amara entered. They stared at each other across 10 feet of carpet. Then Chiamaka crossed it in 3 strides and held her sister so hard Amara felt the breath leave her ribs. They told me you were being held, Chiamaka whispered into her hair. They showed me edited footage. They told me you couldn't speak for yourself. I know. Are you safe? Yes. Is he good to you? Amara stepped back, looked her sister dead in the eye. He has not touched me, Chia. Not once. He set rules I asked him to set. He brought me my own doctor. He carries my tea in a thermos to my door because he doesn't know how else to say good morning. He has not asked me for one single thing in return for any of it. That man is good to me. The other man, the one who was supposed to be, threw me in the snow. Chiamaka was silent for a long moment. Then she said in Igbo, O di mama, ana makwadogi. It is well. I stand with you. She stayed 2 weeks. She met Seojin. She watched him. She asked him 3 quiet, pointed questions about his intentions. He answered all 3 honestly, including the one that admitted he did not know yet whether he was capable of being the kind of husband Amara deserved, but he would spend the rest of his life trying, only if she chose it, never as a price. Chiamaka returned to Lagos and texted Amara from the airport. He's not soft, but he is true. That is rarer. And the trap Minjun had laid became the thing that bound Seojin closer. 7 months pregnant. A snowless evening. Amara in the library, reading a worn copy of Park Won-soo's stories Seojin had left out for her. He came in, sat opposite, did not pick up a book, did not look at his phone. I have to tell you something, he said. She closed the book. I have done things, Amara. Not the things the rumors say. I have never trafficked. I have never harmed a woman or a child. Those are lies my enemies plant. But I have ruined men. I have used information as a weapon. I have let people fear me because fear was easier than being seen. I built my empire on never being soft, because the one time I was, at 16, when my parents' debt collectors came, softness cost me my mother. His hands were folded, knuckles white. I do not know how to be a husband. I do not know how to be a father. I have a flaw, Amara, and the flaw is this. When I am afraid, I become cold faster than any man should. If I am ever cold to you, if I ever, by accident, treat you the way Choi treated you, I want you to leave the room and not come back until I come find you and apologize on my knees. Amara set the book down. Seojin. Yes. You just did the hardest thing a proud man can do. You named the wound before it could bite me. She reached across the small space between their chairs and took his hand. Held it. Both of hers around one of his. I forgive you in advance for the days you'll be afraid, and I expect you to forgive me on the days I am. His eyes, those cold tea eyes, filled briefly and then cleared. He did not cry. He simply nodded. Deal. And on a quiet evening in a library, with snow gone and 7 months of life kicking softly inside her, the cold-hearted king received his earned softness, not because he asked, but because he confessed. The custody case dragged on for 3 months. The The court found unanimously in Amara's favor. The Choi Hotel Group was investigated for tax fraud, not because Seo Jin made the call, he had promised her he wouldn't, but because Amara's leaked CCTV from that snow night triggered 3 civil suits from former Choi employees who had also been mistreated. The dominoes fell on their own. Minjun's mother had a public breakdown. Haerin's cosmetics empire lost its primary investor. Seo Jin's holding company, quietly, legally, after a single board meeting. No threats, just numbers. On the day the verdict came down, Minjun showed up at the Kang residence gate. Alone. No press. No lawyer. Seo Jin had him brought to the front study. Amara was there, 8 months pregnant, seated, calm. Minjun did not look at her at first. He looked at the floor. Then, finally, at her stomach. "I know I have no right," he said. His voice was hollow. "I am not asking to come back. I am asking, when the child is born, if I might someday write a letter. Just a letter, for when they are old enough to read it, to say I am sorry. To say I knew their mother was extraordinary, and I was small." Amara was quiet for a long time. Then, "Write the letter, Minjun. I will keep it. The child will read it when they are 18. Not before. And what they choose to do with you after that is theirs." Minjun bowed. Deep, the full 90-degree bow Korean men reserved for the deepest apologies. He left. Seo Jin, who had not spoken once during the entire exchange, finally let out a breath. "You are kinder than I would have been." "I know," Amara said. "That's why you keep me." For the first time in his life, Kang Seo Jin laughed, really laughed, a full, rough, surprised laugh that startled the sparrows off the windowsill. The baby came on a clear March morning. A girl, healthy, loud, brown like her mother, sharp-eyed like nobody in particular yet. They named her Chinaza Bom, God answers in Igbo, spring in Korean, a name that belonged to 2 countries and apologized to neither. Seo Jin held her like she was made of glass, and then, slowly, like she was made of something stronger than glass, like a vow. That night, after Amara was asleep, he stood at the nursery window with his daughter on his shoulder and made her 3 quiet promises in 3 languages: Korean for honor, English for clarity, and, in the only Igbo phrase he had taught himself, badly accented but correct, "Ibun kem iga adikwa." You are mine. You will be safe. Amara was not asleep. She heard. She smiled into her pillow. They married 6 months later. No banquet. No 200 guests. Just Chiamaka, Mrs. Bay, Dr. Han, Seo Jin's grandmother's photograph on a small altar, and a baby in a white dress chewing on her own fist. Amara wore a hanbok the color of Lagos sunrise. Seo Jin wore a black suit, and for the first time in public, a tie his daughter had picked from a basket. He had earned every level. Phase 1, 2, 3, 4. And one more. The unwritten Phase 5. The one no rulebook named. The phase where the woman he loved stopped being someone he protected and started being someone he simply built a life beside. When the small ceremony ended, he leaned down and whispered something to her in Korean. She whispered back, in Igbo. Neither of them translated. Some loves are not for the audience. Some loves are only for the 2 people who survived the snow. So now you've seen it. A maid the world threw away. A king the world never touched. A villain who lost not because he was killed, but because he was outclassed by kindness with a strategy. A baby whose name belongs to 2 countries. And a coat. One black, expensive, heavy coat that is now folded in a glass case in a Pyeongchang-dong house because the woman it once saved said, "Don't throw this away. This is the night our family began." If you cried, if you cheered, if you whispered finally when Minjun bowed, drop the word coat in the comments. I read every single one. If you want more stories like this, where the cold-hearted meet someone braver and the broken find someone who finally sees them, subscribe to A Korean Mafia Boss. Hit the bell so YouTube actually shows you the next one, and tell me in the comments. Should the next story be about Seo-jin's younger brother, who's about to fall for a woman he was originally hired to investigate? Stay warm out there, and remember, the right person doesn't ask you to freeze for them. The right person stops their car. I'll see you in the next one.